Welcome to the Business Blast podcast. I'm your host, Tyler Wagner. This episode is brought to you by Authors Unite. Authors Unite provides you with all the resources you need to become a successful author. You can learn more about Authors Unite and join the free community at authorsunite.com. Now, let's jump into the episode. All right, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Business Blast podcast. I'm your host, Tyler Wagner. Today I have Gary Reid with us. He's a creative director. So welcome to the show, Gary.
Hey, how you doing, Tyler? Thank you for having me, man.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate it. We'll dive in. The first question I have for you is, what's the best story from your life that has an underlying valuable message?
I think here pretty recently, I have started going to therapy. And I think what I've learned from therapy is that it's better to be proactive than to wait for there to be a problem. So that's the newest lesson I've learned. And from that lesson, I've kind of learned that it's okay for there to be different versions of the right answer. You know, I spent a lot of time trying to be the person in the room that was the most right. And I think I wasted a lot of valuable time not hearing other people's opinions, which in turn I think allows for a lot of growth. So I don't know if that answers the question very well, but
no, it does. Thank you. And what's the most valuable piece of information we should know that's within your expertise or industry?
I think creative direction is kind of an all-encompassing way of looking at marketing. And so from the marketing perspective, I think that the most valuable lesson for any company that I've worked with or haven't worked with to know from the marketing perspective is that even though things have worked in the past, with the way that we consume information now, you have to be willing to move forward with the way that you advertise and market your business.
And what's your best piece of overall business advice, so not necessarily industry specific?
Try everything, you know, and don't be afraid to be different. Sometimes what you're doing isn't going to look like everybody else's, but that means that maybe you're going to be the person to start something and create a new trend that people follow for a long time.
And if you could give your younger self one piece of advice, what would that be?
The sooner you start working hard, the easier, the sooner you'll get acquainted with success. So the earlier you start, the sooner you'll get to where you want to be.
And in your opinion, what's the key to happiness?
Passion. I think passion is the key to happiness, and just having an open mind in general.
And what's the best book that you've read, and what was the number one thing you learned from that?
Communist Manifesto, I think, is the greatest piece of literature ever written. And I think the lesson that I learned from Communist Manifesto is, I guess, the answer to the last question, which is passion. Just to be mindful of things other than, you know, your financial gain at the end of the day. And
what's your favorite quote and why?
My favorite quote? That's a tough one. Can I use like a song?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. So I'll say the last verse of "Sing for the Moment" by Eminem is probably one of the coolest things I've ever heard in my life, and it's something that's always resonated with me. Just about invoking passion and understanding the people who are listening to you, and being mindful of the consequences of your actions. So that's definitely. That would be probably something I'd say is pretty memorable for me, is the third verse of "Sing for the Moment" by Eminem.
Yes, man. Thank you so much for coming on. The last question I have for you before we let you go is, where's the best place for people to find you online?
I'm very new to social media because I do it for work pretty often. So I am Reid and Write. I am Reid and Write on Instagram. It's probably the best place for anybody to find me on social media. And I'm very new to it, and I'm getting better at it as an individual. So like, follow, subscribe, and all that good stuff. And my podcast is called Strictly Research, with a shameless plug there. I appreciate it.
Awesome, man. Of course. Thanks again for coming on. We appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem, man. Be well.
podcast you just heard was recorded with Anchor. If you want to make your own, download the Android or iOS app completely free from anchor.fm/podcast. That's anchor.fm/podcast.